think we've all heard the saying, if you want something done right, then do it yourself. Being on the ground with our farmers, it's not that we're actually doing it ourselves, but we have the ability to influence what most companies can't or won't, or quite frankincense-ly don't. Now, all jokes aside, it's the job of our sourcing team to make certain we have these beautiful partnerships and long-term sustainable sourcing. Pretty easy, right? It's not, but Tim Valentiner and his team lead this incredible crusade to ensure we have the best of the best provided by the thousands of partner farmers from Bulgaria to Madagascar and all the way back around.
Direct sourcing and forming long-term partnerships are central to doTERRA's sourcing strategy. We're excited to introduce you today to some of the people who are making this happen around the world. From Bulgaria, Plamen Nikolov, our General Manager of Esotere Bulgaria. From Kenya, Taylor McKay, Strategic Sourcing Manager for Sub-Saharan Africa. From Australia, Emily Bell, Strategic Sourcing Manager for the Oceania and Asia regions. And from Southern Italy, Cecilia Spinelli, a long-term citrus partner with us. Today we want to talk about why we intentionally direct source our essential oil and how this sourcing strategy is critically important in our pursuit of purity and all that goes into making that happen. Plamen, can you first talk to us a bit about how adulteration typically happens in the essential oil industry in Bulgaria and how we are doing it very differently in terms of how we are sourcing and working directly with farmers through Esotere?
Yes, we all know that adulteration happens, and actually I can divide the time here in Bulgaria as the time before Esotere and the time after Esotere. This is a very simple line. Before Esotere, I know that doTERRA was looking for partners or distillers who are eventually on the same level of understanding the essential oils and partners doTERRA can rely on, and that was not possible. I can talk about Melissa and rose oil as example of frequently adulteration, and the reason is very simple. These are expensive oils, and every distiller and farmer actually is tempted to adulterate these oils, but and finally, as doTERRA learned that it is impossible to find a reliable partner, doTERRA decided to establish Esotere. That was the direct reason of it. And Esotere is an instrument to change the industry and the standards in the industry in Bulgaria.
To actually create a new standard, right?
A new standard, yes.
We really had a difficult time finding partners that aligned with our priorities of purity, of ensuring that we're getting the best quality, but really the focus on farmers and ensuring that they were the central part of everything we were doing, that it was a farmer-focused operation first and foremost. And without really having any partners that shared that vision, we realized we had to do it ourselves, but to set a new standard that has now really raised the bar for everyone else that's functioning in Bulgaria now currently.
Exactly, and it was the logical step by establishing own company, 100% owned company in Bulgaria, and the life of Esotere after that is very clear and very logical. We started to establish long-term relations to farmers. The oils we distill at Esotere are lavender, melissa, yarrow, and we partner with important rose distilleries in the meantime, while the construction of our own rose distillery is still running, and we are expecting to be ready for the 2021 season of campaign of the rose.
Yeah, we are all very excited for Terra Rosa to be completed and to be able to have the crowning jewel of essential oils from Bulgaria be the rose oil and being distilled ourselves through Esotere. It's going to be very exciting next year.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Plamen. It's truly been a transformative effort in how these oils are sourced in Bulgaria. And Plum and Esoteric is the amazing place that it is today because of your incredible leadership and the amazing Esoteric team who work tirelessly to prioritize purity, but also farmers first. The journey for how Esoteric was born and what it is accomplishing today is honestly a story worth a lengthy book. It's amazing to think back where we were just 5 years ago, and we hope that all of you have the chance, the opportunity at some point to visit Esoteric on a co-impact sourcing trip or an incentive trip to see all of this happening firsthand. So thank you again, Plumman.
Welcome.
Now we've been hearing this morning how rampant adulteration is in the essential oil industry. And Emily, I want to switch to you for a little bit on this topic. You've been involved in the essential oil industry for some years now, including working prior to doTERRA with a distiller that supplies us with a beautiful essential oil, but also focuses on very large fragrance industry clients. Tell us a little bit about your past work and what root causes you've seen that lead to adulteration and how prevalent it is currently.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tim. Indeed, I previously worked for one of doTERRA's partner distiller here in Australia before I joined doTERRA and the sourcing team. So I can say that I witnessed firsthand, how serious doTERRA is about sourcing pure and natural oils. And having to do that, meaning working directly with partners on the ground, because the fact is that to avoid any risk, you can't be buying any oils from brokers because you might face, potentially be supplied with adulterated oils that, they would have done that for their own benefit. So yeah, working directly on the ground with the partners is definitely key. So when I worked there, I did deal with a lot of large fragrance companies as well. And even though both aromatherapy and fragrance companies tend to aim to source sustainable products, I also saw that the fragrance industry is much more focused on the aroma of the oil rather than, compared to purity or the chemical composition. And so it was a bit like the aroma always had to be very standardized. So if there was a slight difference between, from one batch to the other, that could be an issue for the end product. So I'm not going to say that fragrance companies actually promote, adulteration of oils, but it is a fact that they use a lot of biotech alternatives or ingredients or synthetic molecule isolates, all these kind of things which really, give that standard aroma. So for the fragrance companies, sourcing pure and natural oils like we do in aromatherapy is not the most important things, I believe.
The reality is that we are very different, and because we're working with natural products from nature, this means that natural variation should be expected. And so a lavender bottle now from this past harvest season should have a slight aroma difference from the lavender that's harvested next season or the following season. And quite frankly, if you buy an essential oil and it smells and looks and tastes and feels the same for the next 10 years, you should be worried, because it means that it's likely not pure and natural, because natural variation is part of the chemistry and part of what nature produces. Thanks so much, Emily, for your insights and background from what you did prior to doTERRA, and obviously love everything you're doing with us and for us as our lead in the Oceania and Asia regions, and all the beautiful oils that are coming from those areas, and most importantly, the partnerships that you're fostering and continuing to develop there. Essential oils are part of a very complex and nuanced industry indeed, with many end users such as flavor and fragrance companies, but also aromatherapy. So it is fascinating to understand that as these different industries prioritize different objectives, they have varying levels of tolerance for adulteration and standardization, which can lead to oils being mislabeled, being impure, and as a result, at times less potent. But of course, We, of course, have very specific objectives of purity and potency. And as a result, we've established a global botanical network of partner distillers and even our own distilleries like Esoteric when needed to ensure we can always get what we need, which are pure and potent oils. Cecilia and her family run a multi-generational citrus oil operation in the very southern part of the country. And one of the oils that they produce and have done for many, many years is bergamot. Bergamot is an amazing oil used primarily for aromatherapy, but unfortunately is one of the most commonly adulterated essential oils. Cecilia, can you tell us a little bit about bergamot oil from Italy and why adulteration, unfortunately, is so common with this oil?
Our family company works with a vast network of citrus farmers in Italy to provide to doTERRA so special and so fabulous citrus essential oils, including lemon, bergamot, orange, mandarin, and other citrus oils. In the case of bergamot, one of the main chemical components sought from bergamot is called linalool. Unfortunately, linalool is so easy to isolate and produce synthetically, which means that many companies adulterate bergamot essential oil by adding linalool to spike it or to extend it, instead of supplying pure essential bergamot oil. It's actually very sad how much bergamot oil is adulterated. For example, in Italy, there is an estimated 300 metric tons of pure bergamot oil produced annually, yet 1,000 metric tons of bergamot oil get sold on the global market. Those numbers don't line up very well, of course. And this means that there is a lot of pure bergamot oil that is extended or adulterated and then sold to whoever is willing to buy it, whether they know that it is adulterated or not.
This means that basically 700 metric tons of bergamot oil being sold on the market is not actually pure. If the estimates are around 300 tons per year and 1,000 are being sold, that's coming from somewhere. And it's so sad to see that level of adulteration happening for an oil that's so precious and important as bergamot. It's disturbing for transparency reasons, but also safety. Can you tell us a little bit about how this affects the bergamot market, this type of practice of adulteration?
This is a big problem because it crowds out honest distillers like us. We don't cheat or cut corners. This means that we need to purchase a massive volume of bergamot fruit to produce pure essential oil. And this is difficult when the prices are set so high artificially.
It's so important for us to understand how oil adulteration ultimately cheats not only the consumers, but it hurts the farmers who are so dependent on what they produce for their livelihood, and how we need to continue to educate the world about this. Now for our last questions, Taylor, you are based currently in Kenya and oversee our clove bud oil that is coming from Madagascar, where unfortunately as well essential oil adulteration practices are widespread. Can you talk to us a little bit about that in the Madagascan context, but also about clove in particular?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So clove is unique in the fact that the clove tree has 3 distinct plant parts that have different chemical profiles. So you have clove bud, clove stem, and clove leaf. And oftentimes these are distilled together or blended together afterwards, despite their chemistries being quite different. And then they're sold as a package deal as a pure clove bud essential oil. In a minute, I think we'll be learning a bit more about this in a new video that describes just how complicated the clove industry is, particularly in Madagascar. But what I think is important here is to focus on doTERRA's approach to direct sourcing of clove bud through our trusted partners and distillers. This approach, as Ben alluded to earlier and many of the panelists have spoken about, really helps us ensure that we are indeed receiving 100% pure clove bud oil versus something else. Because like I mentioned, what is normally traded and sold, or often traded and sold as pure bud oil, is almost always an adulterated version of clove stem or even clove leaf oil that's mixed and blended together. In fact, I think after all the work that we and our partners have been doing on the ground in Madagascar for the past several years, we're pretty convinced that we're likely the only company in the world that's actually able to say with confidence that our clove bud oil is actually truly clove bud oil and not something else.
It's also encouraging to know that we can have confidence in the purity of doTERRA's clove bud oil and the good we are doing for the farmers by prioritizing pure oil and paying even a premium for it. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so one of the challenges that exists in the market is that most testing labs usually don't have the capability to really distinguish clove bud, pure bud, from adulterated oil, particularly when it's coming from even the same tree, but just different plant parts. But we're pioneering the way for customers to feel confident in the purity of the oils that they're receiving. We're not only ensuring this purity through direct sourcing with farmers and distillers, by being right at the ground and at the source, but also, of course, through our state-of-the-art third-party labs who provide testing for adulteration, and then, of course, our own internal quality control procedures to ensure CPTG standards are kept.
Thanks, Taylor. Again, all these practices help us to source the best and help the most. The results of this hard work coming together to ensure that we truly have the potency of pure clove bud oil, when very likely no other company can say and verify the same. And this has indeed been an amazing journey as we've tried to understand so much about clove bud. I want to say thank you so much to each of our panelists for being with us. And as Taylor mentioned, please stay tuned for the premiere of our first episode of the new series, The Pursuit, which takes a deeper dive into what we've been talking about here today in terms of Madagascar and clove bud, but also why direct sourcing is absolutely important to everything we're doing with our sourcing strategy.